Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Lotus of Doom, and we are diving back into more Daedric Creatures because it's Spooptober, and there's lots of more creepy creatures or whatever to talk about. How's it going, Lotus?
I'm good, and it just happened that, we had started this before Spooptober, but, it's just going to bleed right into it because planning, definitely not coincidence.
Yeah, we totally planned that to happen that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. We planned that in, August, that this would line up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're thinking way far. We're playing the long game. This is 4D chess happening here. Welcome back to the show.
That's exactly how we play stuff.
That's how it works. Style. That's how it works here because we're that smart and organized. Welcome back, everybody. We've got some new, new creatures for us to discuss. Not necessarily new to the games. Some of them are
very old,
and we will be going over that. But here, let's dig into it. We're starting off with a creature, and again, we're just going alphabetically through these. We have some of the creatures today with less lore than normal, so we will be doing a little bit of speculating. The first one we have is actually a very new creature. Here, I'm going to put it up on screen, and of course you can join us on the YouTube channel, Elder Scrolls Lorecast YouTube channel, or for the live streams over on twitch.tv/robotsradio. Here it is. Check this sweet, beautiful boy out. This is a Hermitage Servitor.
Hermitage, yeah.
Hermitage Servitor.
It's a nightmare creature.
It's a freaking nightmare stallion. This is a creature that looks kind of like a horse with a really elongated, weird head with a big gaping mouth and tons of eyes and spikes coming out of its head.
But the mouth is like where the neck is.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Oh, it's so disturbing. So here's what it says on the UESP article, which is, of course, where we go for our lore bits that we start off with, as usual. It says, the Hermitage Servitor is a strange Daedric monstrosity from Apocrypha that can be summoned by conjurers and used as a mount. God knows why we'd want to get on the back of that thing, but...
It's probably wet and slimy.
Probably. Also, you might accidentally touch an eyeball while trying to grab the stirrups.
Would you feel it if it blinks? Like, do they all blink in unison?
Oh, gross. I'm sure there's probably a phobia that's something about like lots of eyes on things.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, it's got to be similar to the one where like lots of holes on stuff. Like.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of that. It's not going to give me nightmares, but it definitely wouldn't want to touch it.
Sure. Especially if they all blink in unison.
Oh God, or not in unison, just a lot.
Oh man,
just
a lot of sync blinking.
Oh, so weird. Okay, it goes on. It says, although its body plan is generally equine in appearance, like a horse, the Servitor possesses many tentacles and unblinking eyes, as well as a hideous wide mouth that stretches down its neck. They are sometimes armored for use as war mounts. This was a creature that came out recently with the most recent expansion for ESO, because it's all about Apocrypha and Hermaeus Mora and weird, creepy monstrosities that are kind of
this thing
Cthulhu-esque. Yeah, this is like if Cthulhu was a horse.
Yeah, I really just this thing is just very unpleasant. I do not like this thing.
Yeah. Okay, so here's
I'm big into the Hermaeus Mora stuff. This is just weird.
It is just weird. It's okay. So the lore perspective, we don't know the origins of these. They seem like Daedric beings that you can kind of summon and use as a mount, right? Just like any other Daedric being that you want to summon and just is now your servant and it does a thing. This has a back, you can ride on it, right? Kind of like a horse. The meta perspective of this is the designers were going to Apocrypha. Apocrypha has a bunch of creepy, weird Cthulhu-esque type things. We've got the horse model, right?
We needs us a new mount.
We need a new mount. We need something that we can graft onto the skeleton of a horse, because that's how, not a skeleton in the sense of like this thing's that actually living, breathing thing,
like an actual skeleton.
Right. Like a programming skeleton. Like these are the legs, and the legs move a certain way. This is the back, and the back moves while you ride. That kind of thing.
Hence
right?
why the weird maw mouth is probably coming out of the neck, because it's
right.
Like that's the reasoning to it.
Right. So if we make something roughly horse-shaped that fits on top of this skeleton, we could use it as a mount, but it's definitely not a horse. Right. That's what you get.
Yeah. So you have this skeletal rigging of this disgusting whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
And I just...
Can it close its mouth? That's what I want to know. Because it's like... It's so big.
It's just always shocked. It's just always like, whoa.
Right. For our listeners, I need to describe this. If you haven't seen it, imagine the head of the horse is just like a big stump covered in eyes and like horn-like tentacles that come off the back of it, almost like antlers, right? But then from what would normally be the bottom of the horse's jaw all the way down to like the horse's sternum is a gaping maw with lots of teeth.
Yeah.
Can it chew? Can it close the mouth?
Eyes everywhere, which I assume, again, it's just very unnerving. I assume it just looks damp. The whole creature just looks damp.
The saddle is basically a tattered old cloth just laid over the back of this thing, and somehow it has reins that go to the front of its head, like the top of its mouth, which would normally be like the mouth and nose of the horse, right?
Right, exactly. The bit go right in the mouth,
But the mouth is gaping wide. You can't put a bit in a gaping wide mouth, and so it's somehow connected to like the very front of the head stump. Where the nose would be, but there's no nose.
I feel like it's like all the sound effect that's going to come off this thing is like suction cups that are way too wet. Like you're just like on a wet, like flat surface, just lots of popping. I hate this thing.
Outlander Frog in chat says, what if the reins are just more tentacles? Maybe they're just tentacles that grow off the front of the face.
Coming off, and they're like, hey, if we tie these tentacles up, we can totally get to where we need to go.
Right. You know what's maybe the weirdest thing about this is that look at the legs and the feet. It just basically has normal horse feet. Everything else is super weird. Normal horse feet.
Its tail kind of looks like so. Continuing on this monstrosity of a creature, it's almost like when you have like do a crossover to like Diablo with necromancers being very common in that game. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's necromancers in Elder Scrolls Online, but the reason is aesthetically that like bone overlay with like the skin just barely covers the bone thing. Or
it's like some sort of carapace, almost like it's an outer shell of bone.
Yeah, and it's got that on the lower part, and like the tail just looks like a black bone, like a bunch of bones held together by skin. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Yeah. The hooves and legs are just like, oh yeah, and then horse.
And then just a horse at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's fine, I guess. So the super weird thing, not a whole lot of lore that we can have to back this up. We don't know where these came from, who constructed them, which Daedric prince, probably Hermitage Mora. But outside of that, we don't really know a whole lot about them. So,
I don't like it.
I don't like it. They're disgusting. I
don't like this thing. I didn't like it when it was announced. I don't like it now. I don't like this thing.
I kind of like the part of me that's just like, oh, this is gross is like, okay, this is absolutely gross. The part of me that's like, this is cool because it's gross is also like, this is cool because it's gross. And I'm definitely going to have a character that rides around on this at some point.
Sure.
I haven't leveled up my new, what are they called? The new class.
The Arcanist.
The Arcanist. I haven't leveled up my Arcanist all the way.
It almost looks more like something you would see out of like a Souls game, like Bloodborne.
Yeah, it is kind of Bloodborne, but Bloodborne has a lot of Cthulhu,
exactly, which is again this chapter
kind of things.
Right. Apocrypha is very tied into that, but yeah, it's just
yeah. So that makes sense. All right, so let's move on to our second one for today. That was, of course, just so you all remember, Hermitage Servitor is the name of that. Next on the list is the Herne. Okay, we're starting out with ESO. We're now going back in time to Battlespire. Battlespire, classic Elder Scrolls. Hernes, also called Masterna, are not to be confused with the Isle of Herne, which is a location. They are a race of hoofed, hunter-oriented Daedra that have been seen in service to Mehrunes Dagon and Clavicus Vile. Fitting to their nature, some have been seen participating in the ritual of the innocent quarry.
Yes.
So this is the ritual of the innocent quarry. Do you want to talk about this a little bit? I've been talking a lot.
Sure. So this is a Battlespire reference. There's actually an entire level. It's a rather involved level, but more or less what happens is there's a giant Daedric hunt, which is interesting because Hercene wasn't really established.
Yeah, this is like pre-Hercene Wild Hunt sort of thing.
Yes.
Not Wild Hunt, but like Great Hunt.
No, not Wild Hunt, but the Great Hunt. The Great Hunt, right?
Yeah.
So like, and so the quick overview to this kind of thing is this is actually tied into Mehrunes Dagon specifically more than anything else, which is weird. But what happens is this level in Battlespire, you are one of the hunted. The Daedric creatures are out on this giant hunt, and you're one of the potential targets. And the sort of unfair advantage is the Spear of Bitter Mercy is wielded by one of these Hernes, and he basically like invincible otherwise, except to this thing. So you need to more or less get a hold of this thing so that you can use it, which is sort of against the rules, but the rules are also kind of, hey, whoever does the best wins.
Yeah.
Very much like Hercene's
survive.
Thing. It's just
survive.
Right, it's just prior to that being kind of formulated more concretely to its own Daedric prince. But there's a lot of tie-in in Battlespire that's kind of attribute stuff that we would normally think with Hercene with Dagon in that one. Like there's even the Great Hunting Lodge and stuff like that. It straight up looks like the Deadlands. It's just like, what? But this is kind of before that was entirely ironed out. But these Hernes are out in these fields, basically participating in this giant hunt. And you are essentially the hunted for quite some time.
Right. So these are the Hernes that are run around, and they look like, I'll put them back up on the screen. They look very much like a satyr. They've got these like hooved feet. They've got horns on their heads. The kind of pointy tail, human.
What's the thing from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Tumnus or whatever.
Pan.
That thing.
Yeah.
They look a little like that. Like,
right. Yeah. So
Goatmen and Diablo a little less goatish, but it's just. But less horse centaur, like chop off the back horse bit and you just got the front horse bit of a centaur. Like all of these things are kind of just similar to what a Herne kind of is.
Right. So you got the pointy tail, almost like the traditional view of a devil, like with the idea of like the hoofed feet, but then the human torso, but then the horns on the head and the pointy tail.
Yeah, and earthen tones instead of red.
Right. So, like an actual creature. But outside of this, they do show up in ESO a little bit, but not. These are not regularly used Daedra.
No,
they're not very common.
Most prevalent from Battlespire. The image on the site or on UESB is from Battlespire, and when I think of Hernes, they're a very Battlespire creature that have really not seen much use in the series outside Battlespire. Yeah,
there's like a funny little side quest or something in ESO.
Yeah, exactly.
So not a whole lot going on there with those guys.
No, there's more fawns recently used, which are not quite the same. Like it's I guess they could be in the same genus or something like that.
Something like that.
but whatever. Those are a little more prevalent in ESO. Whereas when you think of Hernes, you're going to Battlespire if you're pulling from these so far in the series.
Right. So not a whole lot more info about them. But here, let's move on to our third one before we take our mid-break, because these are kind of short. We might get through more today than we normally do. This next one is a Hoarvor Daedra. I'll put this up on the screen. If spiders creep you out, then this one absolutely will end up on your, don't touch, don't look at, whatever list.
Yeah, Hoarvors are just like giant ticks.
Yeah, like spider ticks, giant
They're
spider
like
ticks.
Spider ticks, yeah.
Yeah, with like a weird like head in the, almost like a human torso stuck to the front.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it says...
And they come in various sizes. Some are more tick-like, and the one you got on the screen right now is like really, really like much more humanoid, but also spiderish.
Yeah, but it's a big old mama. You don't want to touch this guy. All right, well, we'll get into the description, the visual description in a second. But here, this is what the UESP says. It says, Hoarvor Daedra are grotesque Daedra, somewhat similar to spider Daedra. Obviously, similarities there with the number of legs and the like big fat body sort of thing going on. They are native to the spiral skein and serve the Daedric prince Mephala. As their name suggests, they bear the features of Hoarvors. They attack by biting, spitting bile, and summoning explosive Hoarvors. They summon more Hoarvors that are explosive at you. These are only found in ESO as of right now. And this clearly says to me, we need a big scary creature or small scary creatures to throw in a dungeon. Let's make stuff that looks crazy, and here you go. Kind of from the meta perspective, you know? So visually, go ahead.
No, they're just, again, this is more nightmare fuel. These things are just, Hoarvors, just like the standard non-Daedric version of these things, are also in the series and a little less horrific. The Daedric version is just like a hyper amped up version of these things.
Yeah, you were saying they kind of look like ticks. So the regular Hoarvors here on screen.
The regular Hoarvors straight up look like ticks.
Right.
These look like humanoid ticks
bodies
mashed in with a spider.
Right. Yeah. So like, we've seen it before where you end up with like a Daedric version of a thing that is kind of this corrupted, more evil looking version of like a regular kind of creature. So take big fat tick looking things with lots of legs and then Daedrify it. And now you have spikes on its back. You have really angular pointy legs and maybe even a human torso kind of stuck on the front. And now you've got a Hoarvor Daedra and
Hoarvor. That's what one of their names is. Hoarvor the Hoarvor.
Hello, nice to meet you. I am Hoarvor. Good evening.
Good. Well, it became a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, he's like he works at the grocery store. He's the local grocer for the other Daedra. That is going to be a side story that we put out. That's going to be a new podcast, The Adventures of Hoarvor the Daedra. It's a fan fiction turned into a podcast with only one voice actor, me. That's not a real thing. Don't go looking for it. It doesn't exist. I don't think it ever will. Unless somebody else wants to make that, go for it. But
you have all licensing rights that we're allowed to provide. Yeah. So there's a lot of like, I don't know, kind of run-of-the-mill ones of these things where they're a little more commonplace. But these things also in the Elder Scrolls Online tend to have like specifically named versions that are bigger and substitute as bosses.
Right.
Pretty commonly in dungeons. I mean, there's plenty floating around that aren't that important, but these are a pretty common boss type enemy.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it feels like the kind of thing that, developers of a game that gets updates every year have to go, okay, we need something new and creepy. Let's just make a big, funny spider-looking thing that's inspired by the Hoarvors, and now we've got a new monster,
Yeah.
So, but, I don't have an issue with that because the realms of Oblivion are vast and ancient, and the idea that over large swaths of time, you wouldn't have all of these different kinds of creatures and different formats. And the Daedric princes just kind of messing with them and one-upping each other with like the next monstrosity they send after the other Daedric prince when they get in conflicts. Like, it totally makes sense. There'd be just like endless varieties of these creatures. So,
and like I said, a lot of them, well, not a lot of them, but some of I don't know, they're a little less frequently just generic throwaway enemies. I mean, there are plenty, but there are several that are named, like Villadreth. It's like, okay, well, that's like a named, I don't know, Daedric thing, but it's like, it's not even just like Daedric Hoarvor. It's literally named Villadreth, and it's the end of one of the one of the dungeons.
It has a name. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's got enough of a rank. It's like it's remembered briefly.
You mortals, you'll think all of us Hoarvor Daedra are the same. My name is Villadreth. Remember that after I kill you. That's not exactly how that works, buddy.
It's like
I'll be dead.
I don't think that's. I feel like either I'm going to kill you and I'll remember your name because I triumphed over you, or I don't make it out of this and then I don't remember your name because I'm dead.
Then it doesn't matter. Yes, but you mortals are also racist against us, Daedra. We have names and feelings too. You know, like one of those dungeons needs to end up with some giant Daedra just going on this tangent about he doesn't get respect from mortals. Like, not like most of them care, but for some reason this one does.
Just one is very particular that he keeps getting left out.
Right. And maybe he's the boss of a dungeon that lots of people go to, and so he keeps getting killed over and over again, and then reincarnated, which is we've talked about is a horrific process, and he's just like super pissed about it. But even more so, just that nobody remembers his name, even though people keep killing him over and over again.
It's just, it'd be funny, just like, such a waste of resources. But in the idea that the lines get increasingly more insane,
right?
The more times you complete the dungeon.
Yes. Like every time you go back to the dungeon for your specific playthrough on your system, maybe not everybody in the group, but you specifically hear a new voice line about like, so we meet again. Do you remember my name this time?
Yeah.
No, I didn't think so.
It's like, all right, not even using words anymore.
I'm going to murder you even harder. And it's like, you didn't murder me last time. No, well, whatever.
Dude, we've done this 22 times.
One of these times you'll remember my name. That
you
sounds
like
great.
6 neurons left up there from all these reincarnations.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, well, we need to take a break and go thank our patrons, so we will be right back, but don't go anywhere.
This is Hermitage Servitors, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, including our newest patrons. I don't remember if we welcomed Wraith last time, but
that doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, some of these are dated, and the join date is before when we would have recorded, but for some reason maybe just didn't show up on the list right away. I don't know how that works, but anyway, welcome Wraith, and welcome JB to the Patreon, and thank you to all 122 of our current patrons, and to our Daedric Princes. You get shout outs every week. That includes Kira C and Sheogorath Sweet Roll. Thank you for your support, for being here and supporting the show, and just being a part of everything. If you are interested in checking out the Patreon, go to patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. You can look it up. You can see all the new t-shirts and stickers that are up as of this week on the Patreon. We've got new designs for even more Daedric Princes, our third set of 4 Daedric Princes. If you sign up at like tier 3, you get stickers every 3 months, and tier 4 or higher, you get a t-shirt every 3 months. And if you stay around for the whole year, you'll get all 4 t-shirts. And I think they're super cool. I can't have them because they're only for patrons. And I posted them up on the Discord. People were
kind of
pretty
weird
excited
to
about them.
Subscribe to our own Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, I could cheat and just like print my own shirt, but
just
like,
make extra for.
It's not
whatever.
Really how that
it's
works.
not the same.
It's only for patrons. It's only for people who support the show, and then once the designs go away, you don't get them anymore. So I bet there's at least 1 or 2 people in here. I think you probably are going to get all the shirts for all 3 years of shirt designs. If they keep it up.
Sure of that, because a few people have been with us for a very long time.
Yeah. So that'll be cool. Also, we have the patron chat coming up in 2 weeks on the 26th. So if you'd like to sign up and join, or stay signed up and join us for that, that's coming up in a few weeks, as long as you're tier 4 or higher. And we also have some new reviews, Lotus. This one comes from JDHDSBD.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Maybe. And by the way, these are on Apple Podcasts. If you leave us a 5-star review, we'll read it out.
It might have been an abbreviation, but I appreciate your pronunciation.
We'll read it out in a future episode of the show. This one says, amazing podcast. They're from the United States. They say, listen to this while at work. Helps me get through my long nights. This podcast made me want to explore the Elder Scrolls series more than I have before. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to leave that.
Yeah, that's very nice of you, and I'm glad it helps.
Yeah, and then we've got one more. This is from Grateful Maddie in the United States, who writes, satisfied adventurer here. I just finished listening to every episode of the Fallout Lorecast, and now I've been enjoying the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. It's even prompted me to replay Oblivion. Robots and Lotus do such a great job with the show, from the deep, dark bits of the lore to the weird and wacky to making me literally laugh out loud at work. This is the perfect podcast for any Elder Scrolls fan. Keep up the great work, guys. Thanks, Maddie.
That's very nice of you. And also, Oblivion has my favorite soundtrack in the series, so good choice from that.
It's classic. Yeah, it's classic music. I can't wait. Maybe we'll get a remaster. If that doesn't happen, we'll still get Sky Oblivion, and that looks awesome too.
I mean, if we got a remaster officially, that would be very cool. But I mean, Sky Oblivion not to be is going to be way more over the top when we get that either way. And as Rebel Eyes had actually commented on something on Twitter, because there was like a whole thing when that got leaked during all the Microsoft stuff that was theoretically in the works. Whether or not it's actually ever going to happen, who knows? But even he was like, yeah, there's a place for both of these. Like, they're not trying to tackle the same thing. And I'm like, I couldn't agree with that more. Like,
they're like, we're still going to put it out and we're still having fun doing it. Like, and it would be exciting to have their version of a remake too. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's just enjoy all the things.
You can't get Sky Oblivion if you only play consoles.
That's true. Yeah, so, you got to play it on PC. But thank you to everybody who takes the time to help support the show, whether on Patreon or leaving reviews or rating the show on Spotify or telling your mom, any of that stuff. Thank you so much. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, dear child of cities. That is why the Night Mother loves you.
So, Lotus, I think this next one is probably the creepiest one on the list. Even though we've already been talking about some creepy ones, I think this one takes the cake, at least in my opinion. It's called The Hunger. Yeah. So here, we'll read it and then we'll put up some pictures. Hungers are ferocious Daedra known for their long tongues, demonic appearances, and their taste for mortal flesh. The Hunger uses its long tongue to siphon the life out of its prey. It also makes use of its razor-sharp claws and can spew poisonous bile. They possess a paralyzing touch and have the uncanny ability to quickly destroy their opponent's armor and weapons. Hungers can also teleport. If they're not creepy enough, they can also teleport. In Morrowind, this is when they first show up, they're typically associated with the Daedric Lord Boethia, who is also known as Hunger by the Dunmer. They're also known to roam the Shivering Isles as servitors and guards. They are described by some as perfect representation of Sheogorath's darker side. They're also found in the realms of Apocrypha and the Gorge. Hungers have been observed to be more ferocious when in the presence of a warm body, which is described as a territorial hunting imperative. Their tongues can be used by alchemists as an ingredient in poison or potions to cure diseases and aid those who are afflicted by poison. Their tongues are also used by the Dunmer as hair combs. That's right. Hair combs.
Yum.
The claws of Hungers have been known to be used to make filleting knives. Check out these bad boys. So here, let's take a quick look at the concept art for Morrowind.
That's what I was going to say. Please start with the Morrowind concept art, because that is by far the worst.
Right. I mean, this is almost like Alien, like the movie Alien inspired. Like, this is what's the guy's artist name? Geiger?
Something Geiger.
H.G. Geiger, whatever the letters are. I mean, you've got like the bottom half very much looks like a xenomorph, like an alien.
Yeah.
From Aliens. And then the top, you have kind of the horns and stuff, but like the jowls on this thing, the big jaw with the teeth and the tongue just kind of hanging out. Super over the top.
I mean, these things never aren't creepy, but that is horrific.
Yeah, it's like nightmare fuel. And then if we go back up to what we get in Morrowind, much less creepy, but
it's still weird though. It's got it is a weird creature. They're very spindly.
Yeah. So it still has the, like, I don't know, the weird kind of backwards bending legs that aren't like non-human, kind of more animal style legs, right? Two little claws that come off the front and then one off the back of the leg, kind of like a dew claw. And then it has like these spines that run down its back and then along its tail, and like the real thin arms. But the head looks less like alien or less like this like big jowl thing and more like a more traditional kind of alien, like the big eyes, but then like a round mouth that looks like the kind of thing on like a suckerfish, maybe. Yeah,
like a suckerfish type of thing. Also, I was gonna say, Rosica's actually mentioned it's like crossing a Wendigo from lore, from the Fallout design, like that's in 76. Like if you have like one of those Wendigo creatures, and mix that with a Herne, it's actually kind of funny. That's a really good analogy for what those look like from two models also from Bethesda games.
Yeah. Oh, so this is fun too. We also on the UESP have a image of the tongue, a hunger tongue.
Oh yeah, just from the alchemy ingredient
from the Skyrim Creation Club. Like somebody actually modeled the tongue for the Creation Club, so you can for some reason have that in the game as alchemy ingredient, probably.
Again, yum.
And then we end up with hunger statue in the Shivering Isles, and this one they've evolved to be even creepier with a much larger but still kind of funnel like mouth.
It's just. Again, for anybody who's ever played Half-Life or Half-Life 2 specifically, those creatures in the ceiling.
The little pods that
the little pod things where they have like the little sucker fish face and like the long needle thing comes down, and if you touch it, it like pulls you up into the ceiling and you have to kill it before it like eats your head. That's like this thing's face.
That's its face. Yes, that's its face.
That is a hunger's face right there.
So we have some other pictures too. Like in ESO, we have the version of the hunger. It's obviously has more polygons and seems like a more fleshed out version of what we got in Morrowind with the bigger mouth kind of thing.
It's a little less spindly. Like the limbs are still super like thin and like elongated type of deal, but the body has like thick bits as well. Like it's kind of like puffier and stuff. Yeah,
and the legs look even more insect-like and less
they kind of
mammalian. And then the fingers are really long and like real lanky and sharp.
Bug-like now that you say it. You're right.
Yeah, it's a little more bug-like. And then we have some different images from like Legends.
Oh yeah, some of the Legends art is very creepy. It's got different types of hungers you can see and stuff like that. And they're, I always say like the Legends artwork is phenomenal looking. I think it is so cool. And it looks like there might be like different types of hungers because other than just like the cosmetic changes from game to game, which naturally happens, Legends, there's a couple different ones. Like it mentions specifically the feasting hunger, and that's the one that looks a lot more like the one that we see in ESO compared to the prowling hunger or the crazed hunger or the starved hunger that looks more like Morrowind. So maybe it's how full it is. Maybe it's like a tick. Like the more it eats, the puffier it gets.
Maybe there's just like different, breeds.
Yeah, there could be different types, different breeds. Just, it is interesting that they specifically mention kind of like starved hunger or, a feasting hunger. It's like, it seems almost food related how bloated they are.
Yeah, it does. Now, here's one other thing I wanted to point out. The ESO concept art for these is also intense. The concept art is always more over the top than what we actually get in game because they have to 3D model these, they have to animate them, so they have to make some cuts to some of the design. These look way more hulking in like the upper body, and the front limbs come all the way down to the ground, almost like they walk almost like a gorilla with their knuckles. Yeah. And then the mouth is way more insect / dragon-like almost, with a huge tongue with spikes that just come out of it. These are intense. This one's really cool.
Size-wise, this looks like is again one of these is used in a dungeon as a boss, but these are commonly kind of like smaller, normal, like human-sized enemies type of deal. But like there is an enormous one in the depths of Malatar, so maybe like that's worth the idea of like, you know what, they can get real big. Like, let's make a real big one because we need a boss, and it's easier to pick out a boss if it's larger in scale. So let's just have one of them really, really large. But yeah, they're very, again,
very alien,
the weird
bug
elongated
sort of,
limbs are just, it's like the old version of when we discussed the clan fears from Battlespire. They were much more elongated and spindly with their limbs, and then it was kind of like condensed, and now it's like, it's a dinosaur.
It's a dinosaur.
And now he's a dinosaur.
Yeah, this one went from alien to insect monster.
Yeah.
So it's they all look cool. I mean, they're all cool designs.
Yeah, no, hungers are a really cool staple to the series that haven't been in every game. They weren't there from the very, very beginning, but they're kind of like synonymous with the series. When I see these things, I feel they're very recognizable to the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. So here, let's bring on a fifth one. This is going to be the first episode where we have 5 because most of these are pretty short.
Yeah.
This one, we're bringing this back around to humanoids. This is, in fact, I wouldn't fault anybody for thinking that these are people in service of Daedra. They're called Huntsmen. And according to the article, it says they are humanoid Daedric race primarily associated with the Daedric Prince of the Hunt, Herne. They were also found in the service of Demi-Prince Fa-Nuit-Hen. Huntsmen are known to be highly intelligent beings and make capable hunters, warriors, and mages. These mysterious humanoid servants of Herne from the hunting grounds were described as spear shakers, feuterers, F-E-W-T, I don't know this word, T-E-R.
I don't know that word either, actually.
And whippers in of the Lord of the Hunting Grounds. The appearance of Huntsman was believed to evoke Herne's aspects. Mortal followers of Herne honored him by emulating Huntsman apparel. So there are people who dress like Huntsmen that are still actual humans, but there are Huntsmen who are Daedra who look very humanoid.
Right. These are strange. Also, just as a quick note, just in case anybody's curious, you can look up more on that. We're not going to go into a weird tangent on Fa-Nuit-Hen, but for anybody curious who that Demi-Prince is, in the Elder Scrolls Online, if you're going into the Maelstrom Arena, he runs the place. That's who that dude is. He's
the boss of the arena. He's the boss, not in like end boss.
No, you don't fight
like,
him. He's the
right.
director, I guess, of the arena. So that's just as a gauge for anybody who's curious. You can totally look up more information because there is stuff on him, but that's not what we're here to talk about for this episode.
Yeah. So it goes on. There's more. They follow Herne and pursue great beasts, people, and even their own kind. Sometimes they hunt each other. Yeah, her scene, hunting. It doesn't matter.
Hey, it's always survival of the fittest, regardless of who the fittest is.
Yeah. So some more information on this one. Huntsmen resemble men in Myr, but instead of mortal hearts, they have Daedric hearts. They are also typically seen wearing masks resembling birds' faces. These Daedra make reference to wearing the skin of their mortal prey to live as them on Nirn, which they will make their hunting grounds. At least some of the Huntsmen can turn into werebeasts. Although little is known of their hierarchy, there are 4 known groups of them: the Davlin, the Dunir, the Gamir, and the Margamir. They often use antlers and spears and horns and hides, and they look like the kinds of people who would live out in the wilderness and make use of the things they hunt. But
sure.
I think we can assume from this that the reason they look humanoid is because they put on the skin of the people they hunt.
Yeah, this is
which
almost
is super creepy.
I don't want to say a shapeshifter thing, but it's kind of like, yeah, if you're a Daedra who basically just wants to blend in the mortal realm and not give yourself away, and there's a high probability that you have lycanthropy or something else. I mean, it doesn't specifically say they have to be werewolves. Could be anything. They werebore or were-crocodile or something like that. But it's just kind of like, oh, how can we blend in so that we can... Right.
Well, it's just like a hunter,
assassin version.
Yeah, it's like a hunter who kills a wolf and then takes the hide off the wolf. Now wears the wolf hide in order to stay warm,
right?
But also to kind of cover its scent, to make it blend in more with its environment, so that it can go hunt more wolves, right? This is the same sort of thing. It hunts people, it takes the skin off the people, makes a person suit, wears the person suit around in Nirn so it can continue hunting more people.
I feel like one that would probably be pretty easy to notice. It's like, it doesn't look right. Like, unless it's a perfect fit. But as Roska's again throws it and puts the lotion on its skin. Yeah, very much Silence of the Lambs here.
Right.
Like, yeah, I just feel like it's unlikely that they would get a perfect fit where you could just put it on like a onesie then walk around being like, hey, I'm definitely a human or mer. Like,
right. Don't pay too much attention to my the quality of my skin today.
Right. It's like, what
if it's the Daedric heart that gets emplaced in the human body that carries their spirit, and then they animate the body. So it's almost like it's a procedure where they somehow remove their heart from whatever carapace they were originally in, shove it into this new body, and then their spirit like takes over the body, animates the dead body.
Okay, that would
kind of like Forsworn having like the weird heart thing going on.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It was like briar hearts, like you're growing them on the tree essentially. But like in this situation, like, all right, so if that is maybe more the idea, because that would make a little more sense if that's how they're going to transfer. Because like I said, wearing other defeated prey like a onesie, that's probably not going to convince, like, that's not going to fool too many people. But if you can maybe like, okay, I punch my heart into you and now I can control it. Well, okay, if you got a shirt on or you're in werewolf form, you're going to be all fuzzy. They're not going to notice. So it's like, that's a lot easier to disguise, because at least you fit the meat package that you're in.
The meat package? Yeah.
As opposed to just trying to wear it like a shawl. That's a very different scenario.
Right. So here, let's take a look at the some of the art for ESO with these. What's cool about this is they just look like people. Yeah. Like, you can't tell from this art that these aren't, I mean, these could be Bretons. Like, this could be a Nord woman wearing clothing. Like, you can't tell.
Yep, just generic need person here.
Right. Yeah. Like, this is some descendant of the Needs. Like, you don't know. And they've got some cool looking armor, but it just looks like anything that, you know, somebody who was part of the Forsworn might put together.
Right.
Antlers on their head.
Could be wood elven. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It looks kind of Bosmerish as well. There's a whole bunch of things that it could blend in. And so that's kind of like, I like your idea of maybe they transport themselves into the creature as opposed to the other way around. Because again, that looks very convincing, as opposed to, I feel like we'd get some Kirkbridean pen and ink, like, oh God, what is that thing? Which I do love his art. It's really, really disturbing. Right. But it's like,
but these aren't disturbing. When you see them, you can't tell they're not people.
Yeah, exactly. This doesn't look like a monstrosity. This just looks like another generic hunter.
Right. So in that way, they're kind of even creepier.
A little bit, because it's a really convincing mimic.
Yeah. It doesn't have to like magically turn itself into something else. It just takes over the body and then uses the body
as like a host.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. I would love to see more about these. I think it would be
curious
really
to see if
cool.
You're onto something with that, because that sort of makes it make a little more sense than the initial just idea of them.
Because it doesn't look like a decaying corpse. It doesn't look like a skin that was cut and then refit over another form.
Right. They just look like other people.
Right. So let us know what you think. Maybe you have a theory about these that we haven't covered. You can always chime in on the Robots Radio Discord. There are several thousand people on there. More people joining every day. There's a channel called the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Imagine that. There's a channel for every podcast on the network. Weird. But you can chime in and be like, hey, just listen to the episode. Here's my theory about Huntsman. We'd love to see it. And I'm sure a bunch of other people would love to see it too. But that's going to do it. We had 5 Daedric creatures this week. A big group of things that we don't know a ton about, but we can speculate. So that's the fun part.
And, a few of them, specifically hungers, are, a long-standing staple, even if they're not like a really elaborate enemy type or creature type in the series. They're really synonymous with it. I feel like that, especially the Morrowind hungers, like you show somebody that weird polygonal stuff aside, you show somebody the design of that thing, and it's very much like, oh, okay, that's a Morrowind thing.
Yeah,
like, got it.
Yeah, all 12 polygons. Lotus, you got anything else going on that you want to share?
Not really. Just been very busy. I was going to say we're finally getting to record. We're going to have a full recap of the last 2 weeks episode of Tales, which we'll be recording live tomorrow. If possible, because I'm kind of a little more laid up than I usually am, even though I've been very busy. This weekend, if you're interested in watching me stream stuff, I'm going to attempt to stream again. I think I've got most of my weird technical issues fixed, but I also broke most of my toes on my right foot.
Oh, no.
So
that sucks.
Movement is not my friend.
So you're
I think I'm gonna be kind of sedentary this week.
Literally laid up.
Yeah, like literally I've been doing what I can to walk around. But this weekend I think is going to be a little more mellow. So I'm going to utilize that time. And like,
Jeez,
you know what?
Dude.
I physically can't go do all these other things I have to do. Maybe I can finally get some time to stream. So,
yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy streaming and I hope your toes heal.
they're less the wrong color, which is great.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they're all bruised looking. And
I dropped an entire top of a plate grill directly on only the top of my foot. It was very impressive that I damaged nothing except my foot.
Oh my God. I just recently met a new acquaintance who is a foot surgeon. I was like, hey, what do you do? Like we're at a social thing. And I'm like, what do you do for? And he's like, I'm a foot surgeon. And I was like, wow, I'm sure you see all sorts of crazy stuff. And he's like, yep. Like,
it's so oddly specific.
yeah, that's what he does. Well, I hope you heal up. I hope it feels better, and hope it doesn't get in the way of doing other things like work and other stuff you have to do.
Work has been definitely slower moving around, so that's why I think I want to make the most of kind of just taking it easy this weekend. So I'm looking for sedentary things. Sometimes it's nice when you like, oh man, I wish I had time to do this. And then
that's true.
Occasionally something crappy happens, but you're like, you know what? But now I can dedicate time to doing this other thing I wanted to do because I can't be distracted by something else. Right. So I'm going to try to make the most of it.
Change of pace. That's nice. Well, awesome. Well, check out the not his toes. For some reason, keep thinking about your toes.
No, there will be zero.
Tales of Tamriel, not toes of Tamriel.
Zero of those. That's nope.
So go check that out. Of course, I've got other shows on Starfield Lorecast today. We recorded that earlier today. We talked about the Starborn. If you're playing Starfield, you want to know a little bit more in details about the Starborn and what's actually going on in the universe. We shared as much information as we have and speculated about some of the ways that things might actually work. So go check that out if you're into Starfield, the Starfield Lorecast, also the Fallout Lorecast, and a bunch of other shows that I do, and a bunch of other people on the network, all at robotsradio.net. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here, Lotus, and chat, and everybody else. We'll be back next week with some more Daedric Creatures for Spooktober. And until then, stay safe out there and don't kiss a hunger. It's not going to end well.
Good God, no. What that first creature? What?
Oh, the Hermitage Servitor.
Hermitage Servitor. You know, don't kiss any of these.
Don't give any of these a kiss. It's just not a good idea. Yeah, don't. Okay, well, stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter at robots_radio or Lotus of Doom at Lotus of Doom. Also, you can join us on the Robots Radio Discord channel. You can easily just search Robots Radio Discord on Google or check the description underneath the podcast. Also, this podcast is recorded live every week on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Robots Radio channels on Twitch, YouTube, and on Facebook. So just search Robots Radio on any of those platforms. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you while we record the show, or before or after. Either way, just come hang out with us. And if you're looking for more information about my shows and the shows on the Robots Radio Network, go to robotsradio.net for all the information about all the shows on the network, including the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where I help both new and existing podcasters to grow their shows, build their audiences, and create the best podcast they possibly can. All of that at robotsradio.net. We'll see you next time.